What you're hearing is Hardie Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardie knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardie products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to National Park After Dark. We are back with it's not Trail Tales today, but regardless, we have a very exciting episode.
Yeah, we're switching it up a little bit. This is our first guest and interview that we've done with someone that we, or at least I, have known personally.
It's not
in
true.
The past.
Al was on the show.
Oh, yeah, true. Oh, my God. Sorry, Al. Oh, Al.
Al.
Sorry.
He'd be so sad.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Sad.
Okay, Al, I'm sorry if you ever hear that. But today we have my friend Tyler Ford on the show to talk about his experience with wilderness therapy school and programs out in Utah. So if you listened to our episode on Monday, if you didn't, you should pause and go back and listen to that one because it's going to bring a lot of context to our conversation. But we discussed the Challenger Foundation and the story of Steve Cardizano that was based off of the documentary Hell Camp that's on Netflix right now. So we had a big lot. That was one of our longest episodes we've ever done. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to unpack there. And at the end, we were kind of talking about our feelings of where we stood with wilderness therapy programs, both in the past and currently. And Tyler, like I said, is one of my oldest friends. And he had a personal experience with one in the early 2000s when his mom sent him there. He came on to talk to us all about it.
So without further ado, let's welcome Tyler.
Okay, welcome Tyler Ford. So weird to call you by your full name, but Tyler Ford, welcome to National Park After Dark.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. Danielle just told a really interesting story about a lot of the wilderness therapy camps that are going on. And then she later told me that she had a friend who has actually been to one. So it's good to have you here. We're very intrigued to hear about your experience.
Thank you. She actually called, you texted me the documentary, and my mom also did.
I'm so excited to talk about your mom.
She was like, don't tell anybody about that. I was like,
okay, I'm going to go on a podcast with
I know. She didn't know that part. But.
Oh, no. Okay, well, just before we get into it, just to introduce you a little bit, Tyler is one of my longest and dearest friends. We met at Keene State College in Monadnock Hall, which I think is no longer. I think they just tore that down.
Yeah, they've changed that whole college around, so.
Yeah. So we lived on the same floor in the dorms our sophomore year. Your freshman year.
Yeah.
And that's how we started our friendship. And I have continued staying in touch with him over the years. I don't even talk to my roommates anymore, but I talk to you. So he's a very good friend. And actually, one of the first memories I have of you is you describing your experience at a wilderness therapy school program.
Yeah.
And it was like his drinking fact, like 2 truths and a lie type of thing. He's like, I was in a wilderness therapy program.
You're like, no way that's true.
Yeah. He's like, I survived. And yeah, like he said, as soon as I saw that documentary, I hit play for like 30 seconds, immediately paused it and reached out to him. I'm like, there's no way. Is this what I think it is? And he's like, no, wait. Oh, yeah, it is. So we are really excited to get your views on what happened to you and your experience. So I guess, is there anything you want to tell the people about yourself before we start? You're like, I'm a good kid. I swear to God.
No. I'm just knowing you for so long. I never knew that you would be on a podcast in front of people talking.
Thank you for saying that, because I don't think people understand that. How brave.
No, because you used to hate people, and now you probably still do, but don't at the same time.
You used to hate people.
Yeah. I wouldn't
So
say
funny.
that I wasn't very nice. I was just very selective.
Yes, which I'm honored to be a part of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's so funny when you talk to friends and you hear them describe you from
I
the
know.
outside. It's like, oh, by the way, you were like this. And it's like, oh, wait a minute.
But she never changed, ever. So
Yes, thank you also for that. He's like, you're my hype man. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with everyone. But on to you.
Mhm.
So you went to, what year did you go? When did you go to wilderness therapy?
It was after high school, 2007. So 3 years after high school, I believe. No, yeah, 2007. So right before college when I met you. So it was a little bit more fresh when I was telling it to you.
Yep.
But I went there because I was some would say a troubled youth, and got in a lot of trouble, hung out with the wrong people. My parents didn't know what to do. I was pretty much rock bottom at an early age, and my mom, just being over emotionally Italian, decided to send me to this wilderness camp in Utah.
What part of Utah were you in?
That I do not remember.
Huh.
And the reason why is because I remember flying there, but a lot of the time I just remember that they strip you from knowing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they
look-
just like blindly put you in the middle of nowhere, Utah.
Yes. And I want to, just for the record, say that it definitely wasn't as extreme as the Challenger Foundation, but you can tell that it's a spinoff. And you see a very similar picture, and you can just tell it's the birthplace of that camp. So.
Okay.
So with the Challenger, they kidnapped kids from their houses and then took them out to camps.
Yeah, that's wild.
So you didn't experience that with your...
No, no.
Did you know you were going?
Yes. So my mother told me that I was going to some type of relief camp like this where it was inside.
Oh,
and
It was inside. Okay.
told me a
First
whole
lie.
different story just to get me to go.
okay.
And I don't think, to my mom's, I feel bad for my mom feeling bad about it, but she didn't know what was going on. She just thought it was one of these like troubled youth camps where they fix you, right? And
Mhm.
instead of me being kidnapped, I flew there. And once I got there, there's like a home base, and that's inside. But what they do is they give you the orange clothing, similar to Holes, if you've ever seen the movie,
Yeah.
and a white shirt, and that's it, right? And what they do is they put me in a black SUV and they blindfolded me, and they took me. You don't know how long the distance is when you're blindfolded somehow. Obviously, you can't see anything, but they took you and dropped you off in a group that, I'm pretty sure there was a couple groups, but I guess they paired me with a group, and they drop you off and they're already there. And the biggest shock to me is when I first got there, they group you with, I don't think it's like they try to match you with personality or anything, but I was there with drug addicts, very troubled teenagers, and there was even a convict that was there, and they were dirty, they were smelly, and they were very lightweight.
It's thin. Yeah, very thin.
Yeah, very thin, and you could tell they've been there for a while.
Okay. And so you were flown in from, were you living in DC area when you were flown into Utah?
Yeah,
Okay.
Northern Virginia, right outside.
And had you ever had any outdoor experience prior to this, or of this caliber?
No.
That would have prepared you? Okay.
No.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
When they blindfolded you and put you in a black van, did you know that this was happening? Did they explain to you why? Or
They explained to me that they were going to blindfold me.
what did you feel in that moment when they said that?
I've already had my adventure. So to me, that didn't really seem like a big deal at the
Okay.
time. But looking back, it's like they don't want you to know how to get back.
Right.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
They don't want you to know where you are. They don't want you to know how to leave if you need to.
Yeah. At the time, I was like, I didn't experience it yet, and I didn't know
Mhm.
what it was about. So I just thought that was part of the process, and
Sure.
whatever it was.
And when your mom was kind of presenting this to you, did she give you a time frame? Was she like, okay, you're going here for this amount of time? Did you have an expectation as far as how long you were going to be there?
I think she said like a couple weeks.
Okay. Okay. And do you know if she was intentionally, like, I know this was a long time ago and I kind of just like sprung this on you, but do you know if she knew that the information she was getting was accurate and she was just kind of lying to you? Or
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because I know some of it was lying to get me to go because I was very rebellious and I would have said no if she was like, you're going to the desert to get dirty and do stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I didn't think I think she also lied about the time frame. I don't think she actually was fully informed on that.
Okay. And you said after high school. So are you 18 or older at this point? Or are you
Yeah.
still? Okay.
I'm 19 years old.
19. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in the desert, you're blindfolded, you're dropped off at a camp with a bunch of other teenagers and young adults who have clearly been there for a long time. And were you stripped of your belongings and just kind of given provisions or?
Yeah. And that's why it was so easy, like when you watch the documentary, to do what they did, is because the whole goal is they strip you of your values like phones, technology, stoves, electronics, and they make you build yourself up from the tools and the environment that you're giving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole goal, right? And for some people, that definitely works. I mean, the idea of it makes sense. And I'm sure it was for some people, but the staff can also get behind that idea and get away with the behaviors and the choices that they made,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And that is what they did. Same thing with us. So we were stripped of everything. All we were given was a sleeping bag, a hiking pack full of pots, malnourished food, and an Nalgene for barely drinkable water that we would find wherever we were.
So just different water sources around the desert.
Yeah, and I hate. It was like there was the only water that you found were these little mud puddles where cows were bathing in, and we just used a drop of iodine to make it drinkable. And those were like kind of red flags that you saw, like, this isn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something that's going on here isn't right.
Yeah, we're barely finding these little bodies of water that cows are bathing in.
Yeah.
So when you got there the first day and you get out of the van and they drop you in the middle of nowhere, essentially, what did they have you do then? Did they explain what was going to happen for the next few weeks, days, or did they just throw you into hard work outside, basically?
They introduced me to everybody. This is my tribe.
Okay, they introduced it as a tribe, the group.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they basically went around introducing everybody and kind of made it seem like just kind of day to day what was going to happen. Obviously, the bigger picture was never told because, like the show, and I'm sure you guys are going to get to it at some point, but there wasn't a time to where you would leave. It was only when they thought you were going to graduate in that sense. So they didn't really give you a lot of like more than what's going to happen that day or that next day or when they're leaving to go to another camp or that kind of stuff.
Okay. So day to day, is it similar to the Challenger Foundation as far as just your hiking? Like there is no real rhyme or you're just moving from one campsite to another. There's nothing else, no other like activities or like, I don't understand.
No, that's a good question. The good news about all of this was they did teach you how to make a fire with what's around you, kind of like these survival skills that are very baseline, just so that you can cook the food, the powdered milk and oats and all the stuff that you don't want to eat, but just to live. But besides that, yeah, it was basically doing that stuff every day. Like you looked forward to eating because that's all you did. And then you would hike miles to a different campsite. And that was kind of what it was.
And then do it all over. Okay.
It's interesting that they didn't teach real survival skills because it seems like in this scenario, that would be a great opportunity to learn them and to have something that is worth doing while you're in the outdoors. If you're learning for wilderness first aid, if you're learning how to make the fires from scratch, if you're learning how to build shelters, things like that, it would make it almost more of a rewarding activity. So it's interesting that you say that they weren't teaching you that stuff while you were there anyway.
The fire part they did just because we had to make food.
Yeah,
so
right.
They had to teach you, and obviously they're not going to provide you with a lighter, or anything to get a fire going that's not natural. So that was very helpful, and it was also useful later on.
Yeah, a fun party trick,
Yeah,
and in real life.
Exactly.
I have a question about the staff. So when I texted Tyler about the documentary, it was the first day it came out and we watched it together. And then afterwards we kind of had like a debriefing meeting about it, phone call.
Mhm.
And I don't think I asked you, but the staff in your experience, were they kind of following the same, I hate to use the phrase tough love because there was no love involved in the documentary, I don't think, but was it like that rough military style approach, or was it more empathetic and like a true camp counselor type of feel?
It was a mixture. Like I said, it's not going to be as extreme as the Challenger Foundation, but they definitely smoothed over some of the etiquette and the ethics that were practiced once they had more camps open up, or however that worked. But you could tell that they were camp counselors, but you could also tell that there was no rules because you're out in the middle of nowhere and they kind of had the power no matter what. And you could tell also that some of them were like bullied back in the day.
Okay.
A little bit.
No.
And it's a good job if you do like being outside and getting back at what happened in your past. It's a really good mix.
To dish
It's
out
like
on somebody else. That's
Yeah.
like a power play. It's sad because I feel like a lot of people in power have that backstory when they're now turning it around and dishing it out on other people, because they're in a position where you
search
can't
for an authoritative.
Yeah, they're in an authoritative role now and they're the person in power. So that can be a dangerous combination.
It was. And some of them were very rude. I mean, not in a way, like you could tell that a lot of it was genuine when they were yelling at you. Like it came from somewhere in the past that, that maybe it happened to them or whatever the case may be. But they definitely didn't hold back when you did something wrong.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate, or was there did you witness any sort of abuse?
It was more about taking things away, make you feel more enslaved than actually camping and finding yourself and learning the true value of having nothing and, the real reasons why they should be there. But for instance, you didn't shower ever. And this is coming from people that have been, so like people that have been there for a while. There's one guy there that was there for 10 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's a long time.
And that's almost a year. And, he showered maybe once or twice.
That's not right.
Yeah.
And you could tell that like they don't eat as much, obviously, because we're not eating appropriate food in the first place. But along with the food, right, it was so gross that you didn't want to eat it. But like, let's say you didn't swear or you didn't take anybody or you didn't share with anybody or something like that for like 2 weeks. They'd give you peanut butter to mix with your oats or something like that.
Okay, so that's the reward.
Yeah, like a small reward that now doesn't really matter. But the other thing is toilet paper that they would like half a roll maybe or a couple sheets, because when you use the bathroom, boy or girl, you had to wipe with what was ever around you. May that be a brittle bush. May that be bark from a tree, which I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going number 2, you got to dig a hole in front of a stick. And the one thing that was really, really weird is in a desert, there's not many hiding places. So sometimes you would just use the bathroom in front of people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was just very, I talked to these guys that are very troubled, and they just like, they're all just sitting there like, we don't know when we're going to leave. I've been here forever. At first, I thought it was a great idea. I could see myself like, enjoying it, but these guys are really rude, and I don't feel comfortable being here anymore, but I'm not allowed to leave. So
like no end in sight type of thing.
Yeah.
And was this a co-ed experience where there were men and women there?
There's men and women, yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And having no privacy and having to use the restrooms in front of each other.
That's what I was getting at. It was kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It sounds really awkward, and it sounds like it's kind of a way to bring everyone down a bit, to make people embarrassed. And
I got told to shut the fuck up when and we're not allowed to swear, right? And by a counselor, and he saw that I was sharing my food with somebody, and he took away my food.
Why didn't they want you sharing your food?
I don't know.
Well, that's
Maybe.
So when I was just telling Cassie the story, and I kind of shared that tidbit about how that was also some weird rule in the documentary. And she made the point, which is so valid. It's like, okay, wouldn't you think that would be rewarded if you're sharing food with someone, you're showing compassion, empathy, you're strengthening bonds and whatever. Like that's something to be admired. Yeah. And that's, as like for a group that is dubbing themselves a tribe, tribes are all about supporting one another, and to be punished for sharing, it seems very counterintuitive. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but.
Can I ask why you were sharing? Was it because you weren't getting enough food, or they just had something that you had something that they wanted?
Since they weren't allowed to ask for food, because you were only given what you were given, and that's all you had to use. I think that's the basis behind it. But I could tell that this guy was just malnourished in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Not like to the point where it was, he needed to be sent to the hospital. But I kind of was, again, I was rebellious at the time. I didn't like listening to people like that. And I shared like a piece of bread with him or something like that. And I got in big trouble for that. They took away like half my rations of food.
Which is
They
already
used
minimal.
Food as a version of punishment?
Yeah, because that's all we really had. And that's all we really wanted and looked forward to during the day is cooking, because what else are you going to look forward to, especially...
Right.
You need that. You need food. That's not something you punish someone for. That's something that you need. It's something you need to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're there, you're talking to other people who have been there. You're like, okay, this guy's been here for 10 months. Everyone else isn't really looking good. And you're going through this experience. And what I know, but what decision did you make?
Oh, I was like, I think that was like day one. I think when I got there, I was like, I'm out.
Like this is not for me.
Yeah. The immediate, basically when the blindfolds came off and I saw what was happening, I think I saw the movie Holes like not too long ago.
Okay.
And they were all dressed in orange, and they were just looking like the way they were looking, and I immediately thought, Mom, how could you do this to me?
Very interesting.
Because I was like, I thought she knew about all of this and she just didn't want to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started figuring out that people weren't leaving. When it all switched is when and I was like, I'm leaving no matter what. Is when I found out that there's no timeline to when you graduate or when you leave.
When did you figure that out? How long had you been there?
I asked them. They didn't. The counselors or whatever they're called. They didn't tell me. It was the guys that were there. They were like, and we were in a part of Utah where it can snow.
Right.
Winter can set in, and you don't have a tent.
And these guys had been there for almost a year, so they've experienced all seasons.
They experienced all of it.
And you're like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, and you could tell they were damaged just from like kind of like hopelessness. But again, before that, they were hopeless as well. So it was like nothing new to them, but worse.
Just broken.
It's like a bad situation to another bad situation.
Yeah, and just the look in their eyes. I'm like, I wasn't necessarily like, I'm gonna get all of us out of here. No, but I was like, I'm out.
You're like,
I'm not doing this, and I'll do whatever it takes.
Okay, so once you made that decision, how did you execute that?
All I remember, it was a long time ago, but all I remember was it's like midday. No. It was like beginning of the day. I told one of the counselors. One of them was really cool, right? But he was quiet. He wasn't like yelling at people. He's off to the side. I told him, I'm like, I'm leaving, like right now. There was a lot of back and forth with some of them. I'm like, nope. And I took the dude's walkie-talkie and I just started walking. And at first they started walking towards me and I had my backpack. I had everything I needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is about 40 to 60 pounds if you're accounting for everything that's in there.
Mm-hmm. And
I just walked away.
And you had no idea where you are?
No. And what they thought is, because I'm not the first one to do this.
Okay.
They thought since I have nowhere to go, because keep in mind, I'm thinking like, yeah, it's just a couple miles away, home base, right? I'll make it over there. Little did I know it was 75 miles away.
Oh, wow. And how many days or weeks in were when you did this?
I was a week in.
I'm out.
I think the second day it stamped, like when I was talking with these people and they were looking all delusional, I was like, yeah, not for me.
Yeah. You're like, I've seen what I need to see. And
there was a moment, and I'm not trying to make this like a funny situation by any means, but there was a moment as well where people that did go. There was one person, and everybody had a name like Ravenclaw or Buffalo Tail or you
like
name it.
they gave you some sort of like
Tribal name.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people give each other trail names and things like that. So maybe along those lines.
So like once this guy graduated, one of the counselors would do, kind of like a culty thing, is he would make him like spread his wings or his arms, right? And this guy would come up and just cut him out of his shape, like physically, and then be like, step forward, and this guy would just come out, and everybody was just like, ooh, and I was like, no.
Like metaphorically, like cut them out of one space, and so then you can like
step out, like walk into the new you.
Got it.
In a way,
like a metaphorical,
like supposed to be some spiritual awakening kind of thing that you,
like you're a new person, and
yeah.
So, like with all that being said, the reason why camp was so far away is people did run away. They would come back
because 75 miles is a long way to walk.
Now, again, I didn't know that until I got there.
Right.
Wait, you walked the full 75 miles?
The first day, keep in mind I had a 60-pound backpack on, but I walked 13 miles the first day because it was this one hill over the next hill. So every hill, I'm like cliche, is like, oh, that's going to be the next.
That's it. Like over this next ridge.
That's the next hill. And then it never was. And I ended up setting up camp off to the side of a road somewhere. I had this walkie-talkie where it could reach almost everywhere, like a satellite walkie-talkie, I believe. So I was still in contact with them. They were still trying to talk me into coming back, and they thought I was going to come back because that's what usually happens.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I just learned how to make a fire. I just learned how to cook. So I was able to like be by myself, but they just kind of let me do that for a couple days. And I just requested a car and a plane, I'm not leaving until you give me a car and a plane. That's how
I'm out.
That's how, like, there was no negotiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you've walked however many miles now and you're next to a road, did they eventually send a car for you?
3 days later.
You were just out there.
I was living by myself for like 3 days.
And did you stay at that one location or did you keep trying to go? Or once you made it there?
One more time.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere else. And then I realized that I'm not anywhere near. There's no base camp near me. And they were telling me that too eventually to try to get me to come back.
Well, right. And at first you're probably like, well, I don't believe you. And you're just trying to get me to come back.
Yeah.
But once you found out for yourself and you really kind of got your bearings and kind of had maybe like an oh shit moment that you were just like, well, I'm just staying put. And when I get my car and my plane, we can talk.
The guy I was talking to was he was kind of like, dude, I totally get what you're doing. Like I would too. Like
the nice counselor?
He was like the nice guy, and everybody else were like, had an agenda. And the guys that I were talking to were threatening me about, if you leave, like your mom's not getting her money back, and we're not going to come get you. So you can just sit out there for as long as it takes for you to come back, but we're not going to help you, and all this stuff. And they were being super rude about it. When in reality, it's like if somebody wants to go home, like send them home.
Yeah. You can't hold someone hostage.
And you're that adamant about it? Yeah.
If you're that adamant about it, because also too, there's like coyotes and everything around me howling at night. And I'm just thinking like something's going to eat me. But
it's scary.
A lot of it too is like, I just got there. I'm not really self-sustainable at that point.
Well, you're not to like knock you down any pegs or anything, but it's just, you're a teenager from DC with no outdoor experience. And
yeah, exactly.
Now you're just dropped. Like it's a lot to deal with. And especially like, I mean, you say coyotes and stuff, but you're in mountain lion territory. You're out there, you're by yourself. You have minimal supplies. Yeah, you can make a fire, but
I had a python in my sleeping bag one day when I woke up.
There's no way you had a python. A snake.
I mean, a snake. I don't know, like a snake that was in my sleeping bag when I woke up.
When you were with everyone still, or is this when you were by yourself?
When I was with everybody still.
How was that?
I screamed like a little girl.
Did you feel it like when you woke up? Like what happened?
Yeah. It was probably about, I want to say like a couple feet long, 4 feet.
It was just,
but they were saying that
4 feet is a couple of feet. That's huge.
Yeah,
that's a
4 feet
massive
long.
snake.
I don't know the exact length, but they were saying about how some of the snakes are poisonous, so you got to be very careful. And what happened to just because we don't have like any type of perimeter set up. We don't have tents. We just
You're in the
sleep in a
wilds.
sleeping bag. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was that was just an added like red flag in a
Like,
way.
I'm not staying.
You're just like,
Yeah,
I'm not doing this.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah.
Was that like, I think you referred to it once as like the straw that broke the camel's back. You're like, that was it. The snake.
Weekend. I was just like, there's no way that I'm going to be here for 10 months or however long that guy was. And,
Yeah.
you can barely tell what skin color he is because of how dirty he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said no one showers or anything.
Nope. Nobody showered, and those clothes that were given to you, that was it. Like it was one orange over the top shirt with a white undershirt and like white shorts. I mean, I'm sorry,
get roughing
orange
it, but that's extreme. You should be able
Super
to
extreme.
clean yourself.
Did you do laundry or was there any?
No, that was all you had.
And you just I'm assuming if you wanted to clean it, you just wash it in your water source.
You would have to go. And what's the water source?
The cow thing. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while you were out and after you left and you were sitting around for 3 days and they're talking to you over the walkie-talkies and they're trying to convince you to come back, was there any moment where you were questioning that you made the right choice to leave, or were you just adamant to go?
I was so adamant. Even walking the first day, I like 13 miles literally with a 60-pound backpack, and I was a scrawny 18-year-old, very, very unhealthy at the time. All I did was drink and, not the recipe for what I should be doing there. And I had blisters all over my feet, and it was just but that's how adamant I was about moving farther and farther away from that.
Yeah, you were so motivated just to get away from
beyond
them.
like pain in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you get finally the nice camp counselor, right, is talking to you, and you eventually get your wish. You're removed from the camp. How did that go over?
All I remember is a black SUV came and picked me up with one of the camp counselors. They didn't blindfold me, but it was just silent the whole way there.
Did you trust that they were taking you to the airport?
I had no idea.
No idea.
I had no idea. So that was another thing, right? Because 75 miles without your blindfold on is a long way. It was about like an hour more.
Yeah.
And I was just the whole time, I'm like, what are they going to do next? You know? And of course, not knowing that this camp is more refined than what started off as like sexual abuse and, mentally distraught camp of people.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, this doesn't sound like many people make it out.
You were like, this
Which is
just
scary.
doesn't, which is
if I got to do this much to get away from that camp, and people are paying good money for that. And I think that's another reason why they wanted me to stay.
Right.
In terms of that.
Yeah.
So going back to, you find out that you are actually going home.
Yeah.
They brought you. Did you have any reservations about going home and confronting I have to ask, was it your mom and your dad, or was this more of your mom's decision?
My dad doesn't talk a lot. So I'm going to, even when I talk to him still, but I think it was more my mom.
Okay. So going back, did you have any reluctance or reservations about walking through the door and being like, I've arrived? Did you give her a heads up or?
And just to preface, my mom is the best thing in the world. You know what I mean? She made one silly mistake, but she's always been there for me. So this isn't like a pattern of bad choices that my mom did, but I was so mad at her. And, and even my grandmother, my nanny, who, if you're Italian, is the dawn of the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crucified my mother for sending me there. I was not happy and was like, you got to get him out of there right now. Why would you send him to a camp like that? He's just a teenager, kind of he's going to get better kind of deal. But yeah, so me and my parents didn't get along after that for quite some time. I actually got kicked out as soon as I came back because she still didn't know how weird it was.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, and we talked about this a lot before you came on when Danielle was telling this story, but these places are advertised so well to parents. And I think every parent that sends their child to something like this goes in with the best intentions. They see, you said you were struggling, you were really low in life at the time, and I'm sure your mother obviously saw that and found a program that she thought would help. And then, of course, it turned out not to be that way, which I don't think is her fault. But I imagine as coming home, the tensions between you guys, you just went through this horribly traumatic experience. She just spent a lot of money to try and help you. I imagine coming home to that would be very rough.
Even before I came home, I was in the airport, which, by the way, my flight got canceled. I had to sleep at the airport. But
oh no. You're like, I just want to go home.
she basically said that you're out the door when you get here, because in her mind, I quit. Mm-hmm. I gave up. I didn't try to challenge myself to this whole thing. And, you know, it was my fault, not the point in hand of what kind of camp it is. Mm-hmm. Right. She didn't know any of that too. It's not like you said, like really good marketing. And even on the phone, I bet they were still maintaining some type of facade.
I'm sure.
And they were also not trying to give back the money. So that was another thing that pissed my mom off about the whole thing. And she eventually I think she got like half of it.
Okay. A little bit of a refund, I guess.
But it's a lot of money to send your kids there, which is why I was like wondering why there was a convict there.
Well, convicts have families that care about them too. And like, I think a lot of people are just really desperate to do what they think is the right thing for the people they care about. And obviously, there's a lot of kind of smoke and mirrors when it comes to some of the wilderness therapy programs out there that we've, researched and that is coming to light. And like we were kind of talking about at the end of the episode, they're obviously still in existence today. They're wildly popular and people are still interested in sending their children there because of the promise of what they can potentially deliver, which is a reformed kid. And I think that in some instances that may be true. And there's a reason that they're still popular because there has to be some success stories. It's just, if it was just failure after failure after failure for years, it wouldn't be going this long. But obviously it's still troubling because this stuff still does happen. And I think that there has to be some level of trauma in a lot of kids that are put into a program like this, even though you weren't kidnapped from your bed in the middle of the night. You still had knowledge of where you were going. It was still an experience that changed you and that you didn't really have a great time in, and the people that you saw there went through it hard. And who knows what they think of their experience or that experience today and where they're at. So what are your thoughts on the program, that type of program, as someone who experienced it?
I feel like that was years ago, right? Mm-hmm. I just feel like from what we saw in the documentary, how bad that was to what I went through, 30 years later, I think they probably refined it to a point where they monitor really what's going on out there. Mm-hmm. Like they have to at this point if they're continuing to do this, because there are some parents that'll probably throw lawsuits at them or whatever it may be to try to shut it all down, and they're not shut down. So I bet you there's good ones and there's bad ones, but it really should be for like not somebody like me. I was a bad kid, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't like ready for that.
Okay.
That was a little much.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was they have a good point in like stripping you of your values, a little bit of militant, but like it should be if you're at the lowest of the low and there's no other choice possible. What actually worked out in my favor is my mom actually sent me to a post-grad school that got my life all turned around.
Okay, I was just going to ask. So my question for you is, if this didn't work for you, what did? And whether or not that was like some sort of formal institution or whatever, or just like life event. Obviously, knowing you and your mom now and your relationship together, I would have never been able to guess that there was such a period of time that it was a really strained relationship, especially after something like that happened. So what did it for you? Like what changed?
It was my mom again, but this time a little bit of a better idea. And it was a school in Maine called Bridgeton Academy. So I played football. So people that are good at sports, but they suck at school, it is what it is. They go there for like a 5th year.
Okay.
And what it is, it's an all guys school and you're in the middle of nowhere, Maine. where similar to Utah, but you have structure, you have facilities, you have food, you have education. It's a lot more structure. And I think the biggest thing that turned my life around was that type of discipline. So you have no distractions, women, no offense, but like all of those distractions, right? For a whole year, I just put my head to the books, went to the gym, ate. I did it all in a routinely manner. And I developed this like discipline to like keep doing that. And that I think is really what it is when you're at that age, is like the discipline and the routine to kind of make yourself a better person. You don't necessarily need to get stripped of your values, because the problem with that is when these guys graduate and they get cut out of their shape and they're, whatever, like they're a different person, they're going to come back to this world.
Right. Well, that's
not
thing.
preparing them for real life.
And then it's going to happen again. Right. They're going to be around the same things that they were stripped of, and it's going to go right back to normal. So that's why I don't think it's for everybody, especially if you have an addiction problem, because I don't think when you come back home to your family, you're going to go out and set up a tent and camp outside for another week.
Yeah. And be like, oh, well, that's what worked for me, so I'm going to stick to doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the only way that I'm going to be better, because that's not the real world. And I think that was they didn't dwell too long on it in the documentary, and I forget his name, but the kid that was in Costa Rica for like a year or something, because his dad sent him, and then he took him back to Georgia or wherever they were from, and then within a month he had relapsed and was right back in his old ways. And I mean, the dad in the documentary was harsh. He's like, I should have kept you there for the rest of your life. And that was so subtle too when he said that. We were just like, I was like, oh God, okay. But yeah, it illustrates the point that you're making, that if you are someone that happens to do quote unquote well in the wilderness environment, in that type of strict regimented, if you happen to be one of those people who actually thrive there, and then you're just immediately dropped back into the real world with all of your old temptations, ways, patterns, group of people, you don't have that structure anymore. What are you going to do? It takes a really resilient and hard, minded person to make all of those changes. And if you're a kid, if you're 17 years old and you're like, okay, well, I just did that for 6 months and now that's over, so I'm going to go back here. There's no ease. There's no like halfway house to put it in those types of terms. Like, I feel like Bridgeton Academy, is that what it?
Yeah.
I almost said Bridgerton, but
Good
Bridgeton
show.
Academy, it is a good show. But I feel that is what a lot of people need, because it's a mixture of both worlds.
Yeah, I think you made a good point to talking about structure and discipline. And I think that there are, like you said, there's good programs in wilderness therapy and there's bad ones. And I think that probably what differentiates the two is, one, respect between the counselors, and it goes both ways.
Totally.
But also creating structure. If you throw kids out in the woods and then all you do is have them hike and try and survive, you're not building anything. People need to learn. People need to be engaged in things. People need some type of teamwork when you're in a place like that. You need to be getting something back in that. And it's not just the spiritual experience where you're out in the wilderness and away from phones and society. You need to be getting something from it that you can bring back to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
There is such a separation of that kind of camp and then the real world that it basically, like what I felt like overarching theme of all of this, I just felt like these camp counselors were watching people rot.
That's not right.
That's basically what it looked like.
Yeah.
Because, these guys, some of the I guess the camp counselors will be out with them, but they can leave and come back. We obviously can't.
Refresh. They have shifts.
Go take a shower.
Yeah. So these guys come back all fine and all that. But I guess that's the point. In like, we don't deserve that. They do, in a sense. But yeah, I think more so what I continue to do with my life is the same things I learned in Bridgeton. And that's why I think it's more of an investment to keep them somewhat connected to the real world and technology, but also let them know that without structure and discipline, if you're just going to try and wing everything from here on out, you're going to have a really, really hard time figuring out what you want to do, how you're going to be, knowing yourself, which is really important nowadays. Like all of that is more important through education and like structured walls than being out in the middle of nowhere and just kind of rotting away with malnourished food and puddle water and no toiletries.
You need water and you need food, and you can't use food as a punishment for people. That's just inhumane. It's not teaching someone anything.
Yeah. And you were only in Bridgerton for a year. Did I say Bridgerton again? Jesus.
Yeah.
But the academy. I'm just going to call it the academy. For a year, right?
Yeah, 1 year.
Okay. So, and that's like, I feel like a good amount of time. I mean, I don't know anything about it more than what you're explaining, but there's at least a timeline that you can be like, in 1 year, I am leaving here. Whether I love it or I hate it, it has an end.
I gave my mom a lot of shit for that too, because, she was like, there's going to be no women there. I'm like, what? So I'm going to be with all guys for a year in a school in Maine. I didn't even know Maine existed until she told me about it. So it was definitely still an adjustment. But like about a month in, I still have really good friends from there that I still keep in contact with. And we always pushed each other. And, the good news about a school like that, hopefully like I should be like their sponsor, but the good news about that too is all the credits you get there transfer into college.
Okay.
So it's not wasted time. It's like going towards your future education goals at the same time.
It allowed me to get into college because I graduated high school with it's embarrassing, but like a 2.0 GPA around that. And I graduated Bridgeton with a 3.5.
So it's clearly a better environment for you all around.
And I still use all of the things I learned from there today. And it's all simple. Well, how we just explained it. And I think that is a good way if your kid is having problems adjusting in their teenage years and they're rebellious and things like that. I don't think it's like bad to send them away if you don't know what to do, but you just have to know where you're sending them.
Yeah. Were you nervous when you found out you were going to this new place in Maine? Were you afraid it was going to be like Utah?
I thought I was going to, no, I thought it was funny because it was like 2 years after that. But no, it was kind of like a mutual agreement. Like I needed to get out of DC. I got myself into a lot of trouble with the law and like all these things that like, I'm just going to sit here and rot. Even when I went to Keene State and that's where I met Danielle in New Hampshire. Again, another place I didn't even know was part of a map.
It is not far from DC.
I know, right? Like anything up north, I just had no idea. But even then, I graduated from Keene, and as soon as I got home, my mom was like, "You got a month to move out." And I'm just like, "I love you too." Like, shit. So I moved back to Boston, and again, the whole point of this is like being sent away sometimes isn't a bad thing because being in Boston, my life has changed completely than it would have if I was in DC. So
I agree with that. I think being sent away either on your own volition or sometimes not is ultimately for the greater good, for personal development. I'm a big proponent of that. I think people who stay in their hometowns their whole life, there's something to be said for that, especially if you have a good, strong support system, good friends, you have a good job, there's something to be said for that. But to get outside of your comfort zone and away into a new environment with new people, places, and things can do really good things. So
Danielle, you've been doing that for a while. You've gone everywhere.
Yeah.
She's bopping around the country.
Definitely attest to that.
Yeah. I should be the spokesperson for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That came from the heart.
It did. Yeah. Cool.
So I guess before we wrap this up, my last question I have is, do you know if this place in Utah is still in operation today?
Oh, man. So you want something like really funny? I hope my mom does see this, actually. She won't tell me the name.
Oh, she won't.
She doesn't want you to know.
Yeah.
Because I asked him.
I'm like, Mom, you are 69 years old. You are acting like you are 13. Just give it to me.
Well, so when we were talking about it, like I said, it was 30 seconds into the documentary. I didn't know it was from the 80s and 90s. The Challenger thing. It just sounded so familiar. I reached out to Tyler immediately and was like, was this the program? And then afterwards, obviously, it comes to light that it was a different version, etc. And we were trying to investigate what it was. Like we were on Google. He's like, it was like a red something. Like red was in the name and it was in Utah. So like we're trying to like.
What was super like just weird was they had a brochure in the documentary where it had like the red wagons and stuff like that. And the website that mine was the same kind of layout and it had the red wagon too.
Oh, interesting.
And it had like, because what it was, I think it was like all their stuff they put in this red wagon and they wheel it to wherever they're going next. We never used that, but that was part of the, what was on the brochure or on the website. And they made it look like, very glittery and not what it was. Very deceiving.
All advertising.
Yeah. Power of advertising. Yeah. So we were trying to like internet sleuth our way into seeing where this thing was, if it was still in existence, but I don't think we've come to the conclusion. It's interesting your mom won't tell you.
Yeah. That makes me feel like there's something happened with that place or that she won't tell you the name.
Right? Trust me, I have all these ideas and I want to talk to her after this. I'm not going to tell her I did a podcast about all this, or I might. I just might.
I think you should. You've done nothing but praise your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And that's why she didn't want me telling people, because she was such a good mother, except that year of 2007.
And I mean, even in that moment, it sounds like her intentions behind it. And like we talked about before, everyone was swindled into this. There's really great advertisements. It's advertising helping your children, which every mother wants to do. Even at the end of the day, even though it turned out it was a really bad decision on her part, I think sounds like her intentions were very good.
Oh, they were like basically like, this will straighten them out. This will be good. And you know what? Wherever place this is, if they're still open today, they probably turned it all around. And
I hope so.
I would hope so too, because I know for sure that any challenge to me, I'm not going to like walk away from. And I walked away from that for a very fine reason. And I know that's not how an operation like that should be conducted in any way.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it sounds like, I don't know if I would have been that brave or hardy to leave the way that you did, but I certainly think it's warranted the way that you did.
Apparently, I was the first person to ever escape.
Wow.
Yeah.
What should we title this episode? I Escaped a Wilderness Survival. I'm serious.
I survived.
So the guy, the cool guy, I wish I knew his name. The cool counselor, he was telling me that. He was like, you're the first guy to actually escape. Most people will like try to go far as they can and come back like the same day.
That's like impressive and scary at the same time, because
Super
it just
scary.
shows how I'm so curious, because the world is so small and our audience reaches across the United States primarily.
Yeah.
If anyone who's listening right now knows exactly where we're talking about,
I bet you they do.
yeah. So maybe we'll find the name for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Didn't we look up one, D, called like Red Cliff or something like that?
Red. Yeah. Because we thought that there was red in the title. So I typed in red Utah wilderness therapy programs or outdoor school. And one came up that was like red cliff or red sandstone or something like that. And it looked the advertise, it's like right on par with everything we were talking about. And I forwarded it to him. He's like, no, I don't think that's it. But
I don't know.
Regardless,
we're going to find out.
We're going to
find this for you.
And by we mean our audience. We're not going to do anything.
No, you guys don't need to.
We've done enough.
Okay.
You've done
enough.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling us your story today.
Yeah, no problem. I'm super proud of how far you guys have come.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Do you have any final questions or anything you want to leave anybody with?
Don't go to Utah.
Have you been back to Utah since?
No, I don't. I just feel like Utah is a strange place.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to leave now because we like Utah.
Okay.
We do like Utah, but I do agree it's a strange place.
Okay. We'll see you guys next time. In the meantime, enjoy the view.
But watch your back.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. If you have a trail tale or story suggestion, send us an email at stories@npadpodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at National Park After Dark and on Twitter at NPAD Podcast. Join our Outsiders Only community on Patreon or Apple subscriptions to listen ad-free, unlock monthly bonus episodes, and exclusive content.
And remember, when you support our sponsors, you are supporting our show. For our exclusive discount codes and source information from today's episode, check out the show notes. For more information on our show, our book recommendations, merch updates, and more, visit our website at npadpodcast.com. And please rate, review, and subscribe from wherever you listen to podcasts.